When we use rational persuasion, we present logical arguments and factual evidence in order to demonstrate that what we are asking someone to do is reasonable. It's, again, the only influence tactic that's effective across all organizational levels. It usually relies on our legitimate power and our expert power. Without those two types of power, sometimes rational persuasion doesn't quite have the same effect. Using company reports to support your recommendation would be an example of using rational persuasion. Both inspirational appeals and personal appeals rely on your referent power. Inspirational appeals develop an emotional commitment by appealing to someone's values, needs, hopes, and aspirations. So you see here, someone might say something like, "Because you care so much about this initiative, I want you to lead the new team." If someone says that to you, it makes you sort of feel good about yourself and more willing to do what they're asking you to do. How could you turn something down that you care so much about? Personal appeals involve asking for compliance based on friendship or loyalty. Someone who reminds you of how long you've known each other or how long you've been friends is using the relationship to try to gain compliance. When we use coalitions, we build a little group of people who share our same ideas and who are on board with our plan, and then use the group, power in numbers, to try to influence individuals. When a group of employees shares a concern, you might use the weight of the group to get the manager to make a change. Exchange is rewarding someone with benefits or favors in exchange for what you really want. You might exchange your support for their support. This happens in politics quite often. Both of these tactics, consultation and legitimization, rely on our legitimate power. Consultation increases the target's support by involving them in the decision of how you will accomplish your plan. So you might ask the resident expert for their advice. You might get individual people involved in the decision-making process. We know that by involving people in the decision-making process, they're more likely to accept and commit to the decision. Legitimization is using your authority or saying a request is standard practice, follows the rules, is what the organization wants. Suggesting that an action is standard practice in the industry is something that you will probably hear several times throughout your own life. Ingratiation is also called socializing. If you look up this information in another source, you might see it labeled that way. Ingratiation is using flattery, praise, or being extra friendly to someone in order to get them to comply with what you want. It helps to have legitimate power when you use ingratiation, otherwise it can feel a little weird. You might tell someone how much they've impressed you or how much you liked their presentation or their latest submission. The last influence tactic that I want to talk about today is called pressure or requesting. And this is the simplest of the tactics that we've learned about. Requesting is making a direct demand. It can, but doesn't always involve warnings and threats of punishment. And so it does rely a little bit on coercive power. This is one of the reasons why it's the least effective of all the tactics. It relies on the least effective type of power. For instance, you might direct an employee to do something, such as make a phone call or help a coworker. One of the most useful ways to think about power and influence is in terms of your own career. What I'd like you to do is sketch out your relationships with the people in your group, your class, your organization, using a template like this one, and then think about your career goals. What are your ambitions? Who has the power to help you get there? What is your relationship with these people? How might you be able to further develop this relationship so that you get something and the other person gets something? We aren't trying to use people and establish relationships just so we can get somewhere. We're trying to establish genuine relationships that help everyone involved grow and become a better version of who they are.